Hello and welcome back to the Loyal Sun Show. That's at the Loyal Suns on all the social medias. Follow us there. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts for Pitt sports content you won't want to miss. If you love transfer quarterbacks and hate our track record with them, this is the place for you. The Loyal Sun Show, a safe, sunshiny place for your Pitt athletics fix, brought to you by Section 5. I'm Dylan. I'm here with my co-hosts David and Squid, and we are back after a bit of a hiatus we took. We recorded a week before Christmas, and then the holidays come around, and before you know it, we're about 3 weeks or so without an episode. So good to be back with you boys.
Yeah, there's always a debate about rust versus rest, and I think everyone's going to find out in about 10 seconds which side of that coin we fall on. So it's good to be back.
We quickly went from having basically no Pitt news to all of the Pitt news in a matter of a few days, so it's coming at a perfect time.
Yeah, we didn't miss much, but we were trying to lay out an episode this week, and we thought of some really fun BS filler, but then avalanche of stuff.
Yeah, we've got some coaches gone, some commits coming in, a few of our former players finding new destinations, and then some basketball talk we want to get to. But we're gonna start off with football. There's some stuff fresh on the mind here. Some pretty big personnel moves in the world of the Pitt football program. I want to get started with the coaches situation, and then we'll get to the players. But Pitt actually had 3 offensive position group coaches fired or let go or parted ways with this past week. That's Tim Salem, Andre Powell, and Coach Borbs with the offensive line. 3 of Narduzzi's longest standing assistants. They've been guys who've been around for a long time. Tim Salem, big Mountain Dew guy, flat Mountain Dew guy. Big recruiter, Andre Powell, obviously running backs and special teams, and then Borbs with the O linemen. These are guys who were a staple of the Pitt football program, and Narduzzi or whoever helped him make the decisions finally decided that they needed some new blood on that side of the ball.
Let me start by asking this. Were any of you surprised by the changes that were made this past week?
Sort of, but it was also overdue at the same time. Like, I didn't know if it would actually ever happen. I feel like there was a small chance that Narduzzi would be like, look, I'll change offensive coordinators as much as I need to, but I'm going down the ship. I'm going down with the ship with my guys. Like, as long as I'm here, Salem and Powell will be here.
Yeah. I mean, these were guys who won an ACC championship 2 years ago and still somehow maybe managed to overstay their welcome in the 2 subsequent years.
Yeah, I don't know if I was all that shocked when I saw the news announced. I'd say if any of them, I thought maybe Salem might be able to stick around, despite the tight end room in Pittsburgh being pretty lackluster. I don't want to say talent-wise, but performance-wise, and at times that room was not the deepest pool of talent. He was a big recruiter for Pitt in the offense. You know, he's a guy who helped land Izzy Abanikanda. Probably countless other guys. Kenny Pickett. I mean, I'm not going to go through the list of names here, but he was a big recruiter for Pitt. So that was one that I was like, maybe his ability on the recruiting trail keeps him around. But also, I mean, we've seen back-to-back seasons of Gavin Bartholomew being underused. You know, let me know if you've heard that one before on this show. But it's not super surprised, but yeah, it signals that this offseason there was a clear message to be sent about the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, and you kind of hit on it there. He was a great recruiter, at every position but the group that he coached. We had one good year of tight end play since almost since Narduzzi, came to Pitt, and Turbo will always be a legend. We're always going to remember him fondly, but he was a 62-year-old guy, probably heading into the twilight of his coaching career. The offense needed new juice, and I just kind of think that everybody associated with Gavin Bartholomew's lack of production the last 2 years might have at least partially deserved to be shown the door. But I will say, what I'm not hearing from you two guys here today right now is a lot of defense of the other two guys who were shown the door.
The running backs have been good, but I don't think that's because of anything Andre Powell has done. I think Pitt will always recruit running backs well, and they'll always perform pretty well here. It's special teams. How many times have we yelled, like, what on earth is even that? It's like high school level mistakes, like guys getting lined up wrong, being offsides. Like, teach your punter how to catch the ball and punt the ball away. I don't know. The special teams butcher job the last few years alone should have had Powell out of here, but
yeah, I mean, I think he oversaw two of the most frustrating position groups within this program.
Absolutely.
Special teams, you touched on Squid. I mean, we had the debacle of having 3 different punters 2 years back, and then this year having a punter who decided every other kick was going to go 15 yards. And then, I mean, we've had how many discussions on this show? Like, if we're ranking like most common topics on this show, use of running backs, it has to be in the top 3. Whether it was
absolutely,
whether it was Izzy and Vincent Davis, whether it was Rodney Hammond and the stable of guys behind him this year. I mean, it's just kind of always been a little bit puzzling about what the decisions were and what was going into those decisions to play certain guys. So
yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that any of us are more qualified to coach football than a guy who's been around the game for his entire life and has been coaching in the profession for decades.
Yeah, and
that's one of those where it's like
that with everything we talk about here today.
Like, yeah.
What? Obviously not. We're 3 fans of the podcast, but I think we can have an opinion.
But
3 fans of the team. Yeah,
you could take anyone out of the stands and put them on the sideline and be like, "Yeah, I'm playing this running back like 80% of the time." It's just so confusing as to why that was even the case. So there's definitely some questionable philosophies. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, the more I think about it, if you look at the full body of work for the 3 gentlemen fired, they were all like pretty below average coaches relative to their position and relative to the level of football Pitt is playing, that were kind of bailed out and therefore had a very favorable image among Pitt fans because they had like one great year each. Like Lucas Kroll might have bailed out Tim Salem with the 2021 season. Izzy probably bailed out, at least in recent memory, Powell in the 2022 season. And then the offensive line in 2021 made it seem like we had actually been recruiting and developing offensive linemen well. And I mean, obviously in the early Narduzzi years, there's more guys you can throw in. But I'm talking about like very recent memory, and college football now more than ever is a what have you done for me lately sport.
We just named a lot of critique of these coaches. They all had something that they were pretty good at. But these are like 65-year-old dudes. If you've been at the same place for 9 years, you might want to just change things up just to change things up, because the same old stuff isn't working anymore. And if you can't replace Tim Salem, Dave Borbely, and Andre Powell, you've got problems.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think really what it comes back to is just wanting that change of identity on that side of the ball. Some new age, new college football type of offense that wants to be run. And like we said, these guys are all in their 60s. And I mean, thank you for your service, each of you.
Heroes.
They were part of a staff that brought Pitt an ACC championship, brought Pitt 20 wins in 2 seasons, and then we saw that stinker of last season. So I appreciate those guys and what they did for the program. I know a lot of players will speak really highly of those guys, but sometimes it's just time to move on. Need some fresh blood, and maybe they just need a new environment, fresh scene, and they'll thrive at their next spot.
Can we talk about the implications of all this? We spoke after the hiring of Cade Bell about what a shocking about face that was from Pat Narduzzi. For him to be continuing to walk the walk, getting the staff younger, taking seriously what was wasted the last 2 years with bad offensive play and bad offensive decision making. For him to walk in and fire 3 good buddies of his, like guys he's been working with forever, to try to get the staff younger and get some fresh ideas in there. Are we seeing a new Pat Narduzzi?
I am curious, and I would love to find out whatever room I could sneak my way into to overhear some conversations, how much of this is Narduzzi's decision making and how much of this is pressure from above him. With Heather Lyke, I wonder if there's just some agreements in place. If you want to stick around here and if we want to move forward doing this thing, you've got to make some decisions that we want to have a hand in, and that's we want to get younger on offense. We want to freshen things up. Obviously, the debacle we saw last year cannot happen again. I would love to think that this is Narduzzi having a look in the mirror moment this offseason, or probably sometime around week 5 or 6, and saying that this isn't working, and if I want to stick around here and keep winning, something's got to change. But I'm curious what you guys think. Do you think this is all Narduzzi's doing?
I lean towards yes. I don't envision Heather Lyke as the type to say, you have to fire these staff members. I do think she's probably like, Pat, you do what you want, but this is on you. If you want to keep your buddies around, you're going to go down with them. You want to keep this job, or do you want to keep coaching with your buddies? So I feel like that is abundantly clear. And Narduzzi's pivoted quickly in the past. Whenever things don't go right, I think he realizes it. But what does he do to rehire that position? Does he bring in another old guy of his, another buddy, Frank Signetti, Yinzer? Not. But it seems like we're going full 180 now.
I agree with Squid. I think it makes more sense it's coming from Narduzzi, because what kind of leverage would Heather Lyke have in that situation? Because his buyout's pretty big, isn't it? I mean, if he's as stubborn as we've been saying he is for the entire run of this podcast, and his boss comes to him and says, hey, fire all your buddies, and also I get to help make decisions because I don't trust you anymore. Do you think he'd say, yes, ma'am, let's get that new offensive staff in, like we're a passing football team now, go, go, go? Or is this character we've drawn of Pat Narduzzi more inclined to say, how much is my buyout again? And how many millions have you paid me in the last 10 years? With how much we've paid him, he could buy whatever the mayor's house in Youngstown. He could buy every house in Youngstown, go back home, retire, play bocce every day for the rest of his life. He doesn't have to keep coaching if he doesn't want to, but he wants to be here. And so obviously I that would make me inclined to believe that, Dues brought a lot of this out himself.
Yeah. I mean,
he's almost 60, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't disagree with you guys. I also think he probably could have just looked at the results of the season and been like, okay, this was very bad. If we do the exact opposite of what we did this past year, then that should probably be good or close to it. So I'm hoping that's what he did here. They kind of cleaned house. Only position coach they kept around was Taekwon Underwood, which I think is a great decision. I don't think he should have been sent packing. So I'm glad they were able to keep him around for recruiting purposes, for coaching those guys up. I mean, he's shown that. I mean, he brought
some amount of continuity.
Yeah, some amount of continuity, and I think it'll be interesting to see how they fill these spots. Is it going to be a bunch of Cade Bell's guys from Western Carolina? I believe they already made a hire or discussing making a hire of a.
I think it's just rumors at this point.
Rumors. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see how they fill that in. Where do these guys fill in from? It's exciting for me to at least see. It gives us reason to believe that next year can be different. Obviously, hiring Cade Bell, I already felt that way, but seeing as the program is clearly trying to go in a completely different direction with identity, with how they're going to play on offense, gives you something to look forward to. It's very convenient timing for that 2024 season tickets email to go out and hit my inbox last week.
They know what they're doing.
That they do. They ain't no dummies. Pivoting here a little bit, talking about things to get excited for. How about Pitt lands their transfer portal quarterback? Eli Holstein, the Alabama transfer, former 4-star recruit, sat a year at Alabama this past year, buried on the depth chart as 4 and 5 stars typically are in that program. And he decides to commit to play for Pat Narduzzi, Cade Bell, and the Pitt Panthers. So immediate thoughts, reactions, complaints. Give it to me. David?
Listen, you tell me 4-star from Alabama that was scouted and rubber stamped by Nick Saban. That's enough to make me feel warm and fuzzy inside. You tell me Pitt found a transfer quarterback that they swear by and are going to bring him in and throw some NIL money at him. Kills all the butterflies that were circulating in my digestive tract. Man, I am so snake bit. I refuse to get excited about another transfer quarterback, especially one that is not a clear upgrade over our current quarterback situation. So, pencil me in for a big question mark. Squid?
This is very different than the last two transfer quarterback debacles we had. Last year, we were like, yeah, Phil Jurkovec is an injury-prone guy who failed at his old job and is bailing for a new job. He was a 4-star 5 years ago. Eli Holstein was like a top 10 quarterback prospect like 1 year ago. He's got a lot of eligibility left. This isn't a rental. He will be in the quarterback room. He'll be learning Cade Bell's offense for hopefully a couple of years. I think this is a great decision. I am not going to sit here and think that Eli Holstein will be a great quarterback. He could suck like 85% of the transfer quarterbacks do. It's very possible, but the way I look at it is we got to get quarterbacks somehow. The high school route hasn't given us much. The last 2 years, we got Ty Diefenbach and Julian Duggar, who, if you like him or not, he had one Power 5 offer in this Pitt. So we're not getting the big boys. We've actually lost out on a lot of big boys.
Mm-hmm.
Each year, we've been this close to a 4-star Elite 11 guy. And the last minute, some bigger school swoops in and takes him from us. So we're getting a guy like that 1 year removed. Sign me up. I'd love to be the next team that gets a Michael Penix or Bo Nix, but we are not there right now. We just did 3 wins. Take your former highly rated transfer quarterback and be happy for now.
Yeah, I think the thing here that I want Pitt fans to remember is, or think about it in this way, is Holstein by and large was more highly rated than Kenny Minchie was, and when Kenny Minchie decommitted, it was the end of the world. And now we just landed an upgrade in terms of recruiting rankings. So it kind of points out how funny and stupid recruiting rankings can be, especially with quarterbacks. I think quarterbacks is probably the toughest to really evaluate.
Oh yeah.
And if this guy would have committed and come here as a freshman last year, there probably would have been half the fan base calling for him to start by week 3. So I'm excited. And I like the addition, with the caveat that as long as they didn't tell him before he committed that the starting job was his.
Yes, Dylan. I have no issue with Eli Holstein. There is absolutely no downside to getting this 4-star 19-year-old, take him from Nick Saban's depth chart and develop him, and one day he might be like an absolute, killer of a starter. But what worries me is Pitt's history of going out, getting a flashy quarterback transfer, paying him a ton of money, and then playing him despite not being the best quarterback on the roster because, well, we told him we would, and we already paid him. Like, the check is cashed.
I don't think there's any
The Pitt aspect worries me of that. Not the Eli aspect, the Pitt aspect.
That would suck, and that does happen. But I think there's like a 0% chance that happened because Nate Yarnell looked pretty good down the stretch. So Pat Narduzzi is probably leaning towards him anyway. And also there's a new coordinator. It's like, dude, if Eli Holstein came up to Pat Narduzzi or whoever and said, look, I want to be the starter, he better say, dude, you played scout team for 1 year in college. Who do you think you are? We have a new coordinator coming in. If you look good, everyone's on a level playing field right now. New coordinator, new system, open season.
Yeah, I think that's probably the more realistic conversation. Look, we have two guys coming back, one of which we benched for the other, and the other really didn't blow us away. So you're coming in with a new OC. You're going to have an opportunity to compete for the starting job, and probably also here's some money. So once again, like the move, and it's going to make for a very interesting training camp, spring and training camp, with a 3-man race for the quarterback job.
And one last bit on Holstein. I just want to warn Pitt fans that you're probably going to come across, scouting reports on him that are a little bit, even though he's never played a down of college football, you're going to come across scouting reports that pick him apart. I know I spooked myself when he entered the transfer portal, and, I was name searching him on Twitter and saw some analytics some analysis that was less than kind. Kitty, get away. But that's also just because when you are a 4-star, when you are doing Elite 11, when you are doing all these like camps and pro days, you're getting eyeballs on you that like Ty Diefenbach certainly wasn't. So don't read too much into the clippings. What On 3 or Bud Elliott or whatever. Even though Bud Elliott's pretty great, any of those guys that overanalyze have to say, because this kid has been in a spotlight more than most quarterbacks will be. So just let the process play out, and we'll see with our own eyes.
I already looked pretty good as the scout team quarterback at Alabama, but
great.
Yeah.
Screw Bud Elliott.
Let me rephrase that then. Only listen to positive analysis.
Correct.
Okay.
Got it.
Couple other additions talked at length with Holstein. We're not going to go as in depth with each of these other guys, but since the last time we recorded, I believe we mentioned that David Ojigba, from the defensive end from Clemson, would be committing or had committed. He was pretty early. Some other names here: Lyndon Cooper, offensive lineman from NC State; Jake Overman, the tight end from Oregon State; Raphael Williams from San Diego State via West Carolina, and I'm gonna give this one off to David. Linebacker Key Thompson from OU. While you're wearing the OU hoodie.
Sorry, Kitty was being a bad girl. Yeah, no, thank you.
If you're just tuning into the show for the first time, Kitty is David's cat. So
Kitty Pickett.
Yeah, and if you're not watching the YouTube video, I could go a little off the rails if this is someone's first time listening.
Yeah, gross. Yes, please use her government name, Kitty Pickett. No, okay. Key Thompson. I'm so excited to talk about this. Well, one, I'm stoked Pitt got Key Thompson, and two, I'm very excited that I get to talk about Ohio football, and you two, and everyone that listens to the show just have to sit there and take it. So, my credentials: Ohio University 2018 grad of the Scripps School of Journalism. That's right, one of us has a journalism degree. Never would have guessed that. And I watch pretty much every OU game. Key Thompson jumps off the screen to you. When you're watching OU play, you notice number 38. You see him, and you see that guy makes a splash. He's a playmaker. He's averaged about 100 tackles over the last 2 years. Over the last 2 years, OU has won 20 games. So there's been a very reasonable complaint, for lack of a better word, from Pitt fans over this most recent transfer cycle, and it's you aren't going to rebuild this roster with FCS guys and MAC guys. And I completely agree. We might have signed one too many Western Carolina guys already. You can rebuild your roster with a Key Thompson. He's all MAC. OU was top 5 in total defense in the country in the FBS last year, and he was one of the stars of that defense. And I know what you're saying. He played a lower level of competition, and that's absolutely correct. The MAC is not the ACC. However, I can promise you he was playing better football last year than Bengali Kamara, than Shane Simon, than Solomon DeShields. We were led in tackles by a safety. And I'll just leave it there. This is an upgrade at the line. This is not a rotational guy. This is, I think, very likely an upgrade at the linebacker position, unless we see a jump from those young guys from Biles and
Jordan Bass.
Yeah, Bass, Biles, and
Lovelace.
Yes. So this is very good. This is a very good pickup. Do not let the MAC stigma, make you fear or anything.
First of all, I thought Solomon DeShields was very solid last year, so that's some high praise. Other than that, yeah, sure, I hope so. I am in the camp of I'm not going to say all out, but go after the very good lower-ish level guys.
Yeah.
If there's a great MAC guy, like the AAC, the other non-Power 5 conferences, I'm all for taking a shot at a guy that puts up flashy numbers there. Maybe more so than a guy that kind of stunk and couldn't get on the field at a Power 5 level. So when I see a guy with over 100 tackles from the MAC, 10 times out of 10, take him.
Yeah, I mean, and Pitt fans just need to be honest. This is how we need to recruit the portal. The Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Blue Bloods, they recruit the portal by taking stars from our tier. They recruit off of our rosters and take our stars. and that's just kind of how it's going to be until Pitt's able to jump up a tier. Teams like Pitt, teams in our tier, are going to get better in the portal by skimming the cream off the top of the G5 level, and to a lesser extent the FCS level, although apparently we have gone all in on that.
Yeah, and then we'll get some leftovers from the blue bloods, like the Eli Holsteins, the guys who can't cut it at Bama, Michigan, Georgia, those type of guys. But one other guy I did want to mention off of this list of commits is Raphael Williams. He is another Western Carolina guy, but he spent the last year at San Diego State. Did not play for San Diego State. Do either of you have confirmation on why he did not play? Was it an injury?
I heard it was because it was his second transfer, and so he was ineligible. However, I have not heard what his first transfer was. So I just speculation at this point. But yeah, he did not play at San Diego State. And my only worry there is San Diego State has been like a terrible offensive institution since Brady Hoke got there. So, yeah.
Well, either way, my first course of action anytime we get one of these guys is just to Google their name and find their stats, just to see what kind of numbers they put up. I was very excited when I saw as a freshman he had 73 catches, 959 yards, and 9 touchdowns. I was very excited when I thought he did that at San Diego State. Upon further review, he did it at Western Carolina. With that being said, that's still very impressive output, even at the FCS level for a freshman.
Right.
Then in 2022, he had bit of a dip in production, 47s for 658 yards, 6 touchdowns. But either way, he was productive at that level. So Cade Bell adding another familiar face and hopefully can add some spark to that receiver room.
So given what we've done so far, what is left on your portal checklist for Coach Narduzzi and company to check off?
Honestly, I mean, I think they've hit most of these spots. I know they landed Desmond Reed. I was going to say maybe another running back, but you know that room went 2 out, 1 in with Sebo and TJ Harvison leaving and Desmond Reed coming in. I guess we have Juelz Goff coming in as in the freshman class, and by all accounts, he seems to be maybe a diamond in the rough that Pitt landed.
Coach Narduzzi said, he kept Goff, lost Yassine Willis, and he said he kept the running back he wanted more.
Yeah, so in typical Narduzzi fashion, had to throw a jab at a 17-year-old kid in his presser. But I think the Holstein commit might be the bow that kind of wraps up this portal season. I wouldn't be surprised if a few guys float in and out, but for the most part, I think they added some areas of need, and I think at this point, they did a really good job of keeping the team together for the most part. There wasn't the mass exodus that some of us feared. The recruiting class stayed intact. So if everything ended today, and I know there's some scholarship stuff that probably needs to be worked out with a few other guys leaving, but if the dust settled today and we said this was it, I'd feel pretty good about where this offseason led us.
If I had to pick one position group to get another guy, it would be cornerback.
Yeah.
Seems like we only got one, and it was very early. Tamon Lynham from Nebraska. But maybe Pitt just feels good about the new guys. There's a group of guys there that have been getting reps on the practice field, watching Marquez and MJ and AJ Woods play. So maybe they just feel pretty good about them and feel like they're ready to get some opportunity there. It's just scary putting guys out there with no experience in this defense. So if I had to pick one, to be that. Across the board elsewhere, seems to be some quality pickups. Better than, I guess, maybe we would have thought after the shit show it was.
Yeah. I agree, Squid. Need to go corner. Give me another big boy in the trenches. I was thinking offensive line, but now that I say that out loud, I'd take another defensive lineman as well. And then,
3, and I think the defensive line are our best acquisitions. We got Matt Lack from K-State, Nick James from Indiana, and David Ojigba.
I think
it's Ojigba.
Okay.
We'll wait on Peak to give us a phonetic pronunciation. But yeah,
those might be our 3 best quality guys brought in, and they're all on the defensive line.
Okay, so
I guess you would argue
defensive line.
Thompson.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Key Thompson, future All-ACC, future All-American Key Thompson.
We're going to have to come up with something to where if he is good, Dylan and I will do something. But if he's bad, you get a punishment. Because you have a stake in this.
Well, if he's good, then Pitt has an awesome linebacker, something that they couldn't really boast last year. And that's good for all of us. And if he's bad, you guys can just beat the shit out of me.
Yeah, we'll say maybe if it's 75 or more tackles, we'll let you talk about OU for 4 minutes uninterrupted on an episode.
Dylan, you don't look too sure about what Squid just offered up. I don't know. I have already said too much about him being awesome, and at this point, I'm already questioning myself and a little worried about the checks I've written so far. But no, he's great.
Well, what's the worst that could happen? We hype up a linebacker a ton, and then he doesn't live up to it. Then he goes to South Carolina.
I guess there's nothing I could say or do to hype up Key Thompson more than Chris Peak did Bengali Kamara 2 years in a row. Sorry, Chris.
And let's be real. Almost all of Panther Nation hyped him up.
Yeah, look at him.
Yeah.
He's a freak athlete. It just turns out you have to know which hole to run to at some point to be a successful linebacker in the D1 level.
Yeah. I hope a change of scenery gives Bengali a new results on the field. I'd like to see him ball out in the SEC.
I want him to succeed.
Yeah, 2-time Loyal Sons golf outing attendee.
I want him to succeed. But I think we are justified. Maybe not in being mad at him, but in just being upset in general about the bill of goods we were sold, and then the on the field product 2 consecutive years. It was frustrating for everyone, I think.
Yeah. And once again, maybe just one of those situations where he needed a new start, and it was time for him to move on. But we've talked a lot of football for a season that's not going to happen for another 8 months, and I'm sure some other news will come in through the portal. But I think we covered it pretty well. So we've got some hoops to talk. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about Jeff Cable's Panthers.
We all know someone who's trying to figure out the next steps in their life. They're looking for something new, or maybe just a break. There's a job opportunity here in Pittsburgh for those looking to make a change that requires no experience and starts at $19.50 an hour, plus weekly bonuses, 401k, and healthcare benefits. Whether someone you know is in between jobs, transitioning careers, or even a recent grad or current student on break, Haddad Accelerated Delivery is an Amazon delivery partner that offers flexible opportunities to those looking for work. Whether it's part-time or full-time, long-term, or just until you figure out your next big move, Haddad Accelerated Delivery offers the stability and professional development you need. If you know someone who might benefit from talking to the team at Haddad, have them text HAD to 464646 to apply. That's HAD to 464646 to apply. It's not much of a secret that I have a home field apparel problem. Even before we started this show, I couldn't even step foot on a new college campus without making sure there was something from that school's home field collection waiting on my porch when I got home. So we are, understandably, over the moon to partner with Home Field this season to keep Pitt fans comfy, cozy, and stylish at a fraction of the price by using promo code LOYALSONS for 15% off your next order. This discount applies site-wide and with unique vintage collections for every school from Pitt to Bama, Jackson State to Colgate, Michigan, Marshall, Marquette, and both Miamis. There's something for every fan. So whether you're buying for a Pitt fan or for a loser freak, use promo code LOYALSONS at homefieldapparel.com to save big on your next order. Each code applies once per email address, so get those work emails and burners ready.
Well, your Pitt
That's
basketball
homefieldapparel.com.
Panthers currently sit at 10-5 overall and 1-3 in the ACC. This past Saturday, they picked up their first ACC win over the terrible, horrible Louisville Cardinals in a game that was a little closer than I would have liked for the most part, but they did pull out the W. So we're just going to do a quick State of the Union, where we stand on the program, where we stand on this team, their chances to make it to March Madness and to have a successful season. Fellas, I'm just going to open the floor. It's all yours.
Squid, it's all yours.
I mean, we absolutely needed that win yesterday. It has been a rough winter stretch for Pitt. Things looked a little off against Purdue Fort Wayne, but we thought, whatever. It's the week before Christmas. They'll turn it on for ACC play. But then they were out of whack against Syracuse, and they could not hit a shot to save their lives against UNC. And before you know it, hey, we're 9-5. We got to start winning some basketball games, and the toughest part of our schedule is coming up. So definitely needed it, but it's also Louisville, and I don't know if we can take anything from it because they're that bad.
Didn't even cover.
Yeah, the Louisville game, it was pretty frustrating to watch. Despite them ultimately pulling away and winning by 13, it was more of the same issues, like just taking dumb shots, not really able to guard anyone. I mean, they let Mike James for Louisville hit 6 threes, and like there was back-to-back possessions where he gets open looks, and I'm like, that's the only guy who has a chance of keeping them in the game. Can we please guard him? But yeah, it was a get-right game to a certain degree. Anytime you can go on the road in the ACC and win, even if it is a program down bad as Louisville is right now, it's good to get in that win column, and I'm hoping it starts to propel them in the right direction. But this season went quickly from, oh, this is going to be a really fun year, this team can be really good, to, all right, we have to figure it out right now or this will be an ugly winter. I mean, looking at the 2 games prior to Louisville, the Syracuse game, I think that will be one that is going to sting for a while. That's not one that I'm going to be able to easily put in the rearview mirror. That was a game that they were up by 11 points and then proceeded to shoot what did it end up being, 11 for 27 from the foul line, 11 for 24, something like that. If you even shoot just plain bad and not horrific from the free throw line, you have a chance to win that game. So I think that's the one that Jeff Capel has to be kicking himself over the most. And then the North Carolina game, honestly, that was a game, I actually went to that one Tuesday night at the Pitt. All the UNC fans made their way down from Cranberry, brave the weather conditions to get down there. That was a game where I thought they actually played North Carolina pretty well. They defended them well, held them to one of their lowest scoring outputs of the season, but also just happened to shoot, 5 for 28 from 3. At one point, they were 3 for 26. Blake Henson was 1 for 10 from 3. Just an oddly bad shooting night from the perimeter. And it it really, if Blake can hit 3 of 10 and hits those in some timely moments, the game would have felt a lot different. But it just felt like anytime they got a good look, it was halfway down and popped out. So I wasn't I wouldn't have been nearly as upset after that game if they had gotten the win over Syracuse. But hey, can't change the results. They're sitting at 1-3 in the ACC, and their next 3 games are Duke, Syracuse, and Duke. So it's a early but pivotal stretch for this team in the ACC race.
Are we cooked?
Last year, I always compare it to last year because last year this team got off to a bad start, a worse start than this team did. And it didn't look like a tournament team early on, but they were 10-4. Both teams, it's like you can overcome that. The difference is last year when the team was 10-4, they beat UNC and they beat Virginia back to back. They figured it out early enough to where they went on a run and won a lot in the ACC. I don't feel like we're any closer to solving the problems that we had when we faced Florida and Missouri. It's still the same thing. Like Carrington and Lowe still have their moments. I really like Lowe a lot as of late, but as a team, they just don't know. Like they know what to do whenever Blake Ensign isn't hitting 6 or 7 threes a game.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. You look at the Syracuse game and the UNC game back to back, and Blake has 2 of his worst outings that he's had. And I mean, it's basketball. If your worst player, if your best player has his worst games, you probably aren't going to win. And that's especially true with this team. I don't think they have the firepower behind Blake. I mean, Bub's an amazing talent, but he is still a freshman. He's still learning on the fly. They get basically nothing offensively from Will Jeffress, and they get basically nothing from Zach Austin like 50% of the time. And then he has a game like Louisville where he scores 20 points. So there's not a ton of room for error in the Blake Henson department if he's not playing well.
Yeah, and I think you can notice that he presses a lot. You could
and I think he needs to a degree.
Yeah. It's like he's trying to do too much, but at the same time, if no one else is taking charge and stepping up, he's probably like, well, it's got to be me, right? I'm the best player on the team. And that just really hasn't worked. So hopefully they can take something to the Louisville game. I know Ish Leggett still might not play against Duke. Not great, but they got to figure things out real quick, and they don't have many opportunities for these hiccups, learning experiences, cold spells, because before you know it, you're going to be out of contention.
Are our bigs all bad?
I actually think Guillermo offensively has been pretty awesome. I think he's averaging, since he was inserted in the starting lineup, around 11 points a game, which isn't all-American material, but he's also...
You don't need him to be?
Yeah, I mean, he's about 53% from the field, 38% from 3 in that time frame, or for the season, actually. So, I mean, he adds a bit of, a dynamic that not everyone has, a 7-footer who can step out and shoot it. I worry about him defensively. He's, despite the weight they put in the offseason, they still tend to get pushed around, they being the Twins. And we still have a missing persons alert on Federico. I don't know who they replaced him with this season, but he continues to be very disappointing after what we saw in the second half of last season. So that's another thing where it's like, if Fetty can kind of figure it out like he did last year and even get back to close to that form, that kind of changes things a good bit. But I mean, we're about halfway through the regular season at this point, and that the guy we saw last year is just nowhere to be found. So I mean, we're recording this on Monday. They've got Duke tomorrow night. And then they have Syracuse at home the following week, and then they go down to Duke the following Saturday. So I think you have to steal one of these two from Duke. And realistically, the one you're more likely to get is the home game. Not too often you're going to travel down to Cameron in the door and get one over them, especially with the Tobacco Road referees coming in and giving you some of the hometown treatment. So
still pissed about the Confederacy and the fall of Richmond.
Of course. So I think you have to steal one of these, not only because you'd be dropping 2 out of 3 games, but also Pitt needs a resume win right now. They've, like we said earlier, they really haven't beaten anyone all that good. I mean, their Power 5 wins are over Oregon State, West Virginia, Louisville. Am I missing anything there? No, I think those are all their wins over.
I didn't realize they had 3 wins over power conference teams.
Yeah, but that's where they stand right now. And all those teams are pretty bad. So pretty lower level, bottom of the barrel power conference teams at this point. So they could desperately use a resume win and a win over Duke. That's we look at the schedule and we're like, it's a bit of a gauntlet, but that's part of the blessing of playing against teams like this every year is you have an opportunity to, when March comes around, it's like, well, they beat this Duke team who's actually going to be a 3 seed. So tomorrow night's big. It's a 9 p.m. Tuesday tip. Those should be banned, but we have it. I'll be staying up for it. And it would be, I would say it could be a potentially season-changing win if they could pull it off.
Let's do it.
Speaking of games that are going to end way past our bedtimes, I know it's going to happen in an hour, and by the time we publish this, the game will be over. Forget it. Let's sound dumb to the people. Do you guys have any picks for the national championship tonight?
For what time the game's going to end or who's going to win?
Ooh, both. Mini sportsbook.
I am rooting for Washington, and I think anyone who didn't grow up in Ann Arbor, graduated from Michigan, painted their room maize and gold when they were a child, anyone who doesn't fall into those categories or doesn't have a huge future on Michigan has to be rooting for Washington. They're representing the Pac-12, a conference that is being decimated by the disgusting new world of college football. And they're like the coolest team we've seen since Joe Burrow's LSU team.
I heard even some kids who did paint their rooms maize and blue growing up are financially and emotionally invested in Washington. So
interesting.
Roll Huskies.
I really, really want Washington to win. So I'm going to reverse mush and say I think Michigan wins 30-21.
I was talking about this game over the weekend, and it feels like, especially for the last 2 games, it's like the Pac-12 championship. Oregon was 9.5-point favorites over Washington, and despite Washington beating them earlier in the year, it's like, yeah, Oregon's probably gonna roll. It's like, are they? And then they were underdogs to Texas, and they came into that game, and everyone was like, I don't know. I think Texas just has too many athletes all over the field. They're going to overwhelm Washington, and that didn't happen either. And now I feel like once again, every national talking head, everyone talking about the game is like, Michigan's just going to be too big and powerful, and they're just going to roll right over Washington. So with that trend continuing, I feel like Washington might just come out and Penix will look awesome again, and they're just going to throw the ball all over the field tonight.
Dylan predicting a Washington win might be the death sentence for them. But fuck it. I'm pulling a Lee Corso head switch. I'm not picking a Big Ten school on the pod. Washington 34, Michigan 9. We're in bed at halftime at 11:32 p.m. Eastern time.
I'm so big on Washington, man. I've been a Penix guy since the immaculate extension against Penn State. I have been the foremost Pac-12 and Washington guy since before the season started, and you guys can vouch for me on that. Squid and I got into a couple arguments when I said the Pac-12 was the best conference in football. I accept your apology in the form of a pro-Washington prediction. Listen, Washington has like 5 or 6 ranked wins this year, and that's not even counting the games where their opponent was ranked when they played and aren't anymore. And they were underdogs in like a shocking amount of those, as Dylan alluded to. This team just keeps like just outgunning teams. And, you know, they say defense wins championships, but part of me just doesn't think that matters in college. If you have a generational offense, you can simply just outscore teams. Michigan might run for 8 yards a carry tonight, and I don't know if it matters. Washington 41, Michigan 24. I think Washington's going to boat race them.
Should we stop now before we embarrass ourselves?
And the game ends at 3 a.m.
No, this is way funnier this way when people listen to
morning. The first 8-hour college football game.
Dude, I'm predicting a Blake Corum like hyperextended knee. It's like backwards. He gets carted off the field in the first quarter.
And then they cut to half an hour of commercials.
Yeah. 3 picks from JJ McCarthy.
What time did that last game end? It was like after 1 a.m., right? Or it was like 12:55.
Yeah.
I mean, that one kicked off at like 9.
I was asleep.
All I know is this trend of having the college national championships. I mean, they did the same thing. Like the basketball national championship tipped off at like 9:30 last year. Can we please just stop? East Coast people have it hard enough. All right. It's cold and snowy and disgusting in Pittsburgh. I mean, we had to scratch and claw our way into the playoffs. I would love to just watch a football game and be in bed at a reasonable time to get up for work tomorrow.
Why is the championship on Monday in the first place?
I think the NFL just decided that they want to take Saturday and Sunday.
But having a Saturday college football national championship played in Pasadena, California is the biggest no-brainer ever, but the NCAA, the College Football Playoff, and the Rose Bowl committee are just too far up their own asses to let it happen.
I was told that the first down rule would shorten games. I was lied to.
I like how with the last college football game of the year, we're just letting all of it out, everything off our chest. Anything else you don't like about college football?
The Big Ten is part of it. I don't know.
Kind of sucks that the team that's probably going to win had the biggest cheating allegations facing them for most of the season.
It is, not to take us on a whole other thing, but it is so wild watching. It is going to be wild watching a game knowing there's a 50% chance it gets vacated. Like if Michigan wins, it's getting vacated. It's I think, a foregone conclusion. This national championship will not count. And it hasn't even happened yet.
College football at its finest.
I love it so much, man. I'm going to miss it.
Well, have fun watching the game tonight, fellas. Maybe set your DVR if you think you'll fall asleep before they can wrap up third quarter. Thanks for tuning in. We're glad to be back. Gonna get back on the train here, putting out shows consistently, and
Beat Duke
tomorrow night at the Pete. Show up and show out. tip isn't till 9 p.m. So if you need to sleep in a little bit tomorrow after the national championship, you can do that. As always, hail, loyal sons of Pittsburgh.
Please win, Huskies.